Hey, I'm Dave Watkins Films. Hey, if you do me a favor, if you could go ahead and hit that like button just below this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. So today we're going to talk about a film that I got from the Vinegar Syndrome site, but it's one of their partner labels called Dark Star. Now the film here is Feardotcom. Here's the original cover. This is the first time I've seen this film. Now this is a Blu-ray version, and it's not a 4K. This have a very nice slip cover on it. I hadn't really thought much about it because it's always, to me, that this cover here always kind of seemed like it was like a very cheap, just made for DVD movie. But apparently it had a fairly large budget of about $40 million. It didn't make its budget back. I think it made about $18 million. So this was directed by William Malone. Now William Malone had previously made the remake of House on Haunted Hill, which I think is a very underrated film, and also Creature, which I have yet to watch, but I do have this sweet Vinegar Syndrome copy of it with a pretty good looking slipcover. Now I do need to watch this film eventually. So Fear.com, now this one does have an interesting cast. It has Stephen Dorff as the head detective on this case, which we're going to talk a little bit about in just a minute. Also starring Natasha McElhone. I think that's how you pronounce her name, but I recognize her from Californication. She played the main, David Duchovny plays the main character, but she's the second billed character in it. She's kind of his love interest in that film. She's also the love interest for Stephen Dorff's character in this film. But for part of the movie, Stephen Dorff's character is taken out of commission, and she kind of becomes the main character for a good, like, probably 15 minutes or more of this movie. So she has a pretty substantial part in the film. The supporting cast, Jeffrey Combs has a supporting part as Stephen Dorff's partner, but he doesn't have that much screen time. He's in it probably more than any of the other supporting cast members, but he kind of gets the character kind of gets the short end of the stick, and they've written him in a kind of unlikable way, but he does a pretty good job playing a character. Udo Kier also appears in this film in the opening sequence, but he gets killed off pretty quickly. The main antagonist is played by Stephen Ree, and he's fairly effective here. In general, I'm going to give a comparison. The film feels a little bit like Seven, maybe a mixture of Seven and Videodrome, probably those two films together, but this one is based on internet stuff, so Fear.com. And so let's get into this plot a little bit. It's a little baffling, to tell you the truth, and I'm still a little confused, but so as far as what happens, the very first scene you see, like, Udo Kier's character on a subway, and he sees this little girl bouncing a ball or something, and he goes to try to save her, and he gets hit by the train. So that's kind of how that goes down. So that's part of what's going on, and it's kind of a mystery, so it does a good job. It's just, the film is more interesting when you don't know what's going on. It's actually less interesting once you kind of know what's going on, because then you're like, what is going on? So what ends up happening, there's two layers to this. People, they get this website, Fear.com or whatever. They go there. It's like a dark web sort of thing, and then they watch it, and then it does something to them. It's like, got a girl on there asking if she wants you to hurt them, and so eventually they see what's going on in there, and then after that they start to see their worst fears everywhere. That kind of happens to some of them, and they start hallucinating, and then eventually die from it within 48 hours. So that's part of what's going on, and that's probably would have been enough for the film. But Stephen Ree's character is a serial killer who kind of runs the site, I think, and he kidnaps girls and he tortures them to death, and then he videotapes it, and then he puts it on there for people to see. Now, somehow those two things are somewhat related. Now, one of them is a very supernatural thing. The other one, whatever he's doing, is very, like, just sadistic. And one or the other probably would have been enough for this movie. So the supernatural part, and seeing the website, and then they eventually have to. I think maybe that part might be controlled by the spirits of the victims, or maybe he's doing it. It's kind of unclear. Stephen Ree's performance he talks very odd. I can't real quite place it, but it does sound, the way that his speech patterns do sound kind of weird. It's almost like this, like, I'm Stephen Ree. That's not quite it, but I'm going to cut you, sort of thing. I'm not sure what he's doing, but it sounds very. He kind of doesn't. He does it worse at first, but when it gets further into it, at first you don't see his face. You get further into it, it's more on screen, and he does it less. It's almost like, all right, man, maybe you got to cut that back a little bit. And Stephen Ree's a damn good actor, anyway. Anyway, I was kind of baffled even by the end of this movie. I was kind of baffled by what all was going on. I think that they do have some cool. There's some cool set design in this film, and there's some cool special effects. I think maybe it was a little too. I think they had not necessarily conflicting, but they had two different ideas about what's going on with the main villains that kind of made it a little much. I'm going to get back to that in here in just a bit, but let's take a look at this packaging. Dark Star did a good job. I really like this cover here. Now here on the cover we got Stephen Dorff's character, Natasha McElhone, I think that's how you pronounce it. There's Jeffrey Combs in the background, and there's Stephen Ree's character, and here's where he's got the girl that he tortures. In a way, like, just him torturing that girl's like that, and then like having it on the dark web, and then trying to track him down. I mean, that's pretty creepy in itself. On the back of it, we got Stephen Dorff's character and record up there. Something that is kind of annoying to me. Like, once they find out what's going on, like, once they know that in order to figure this out, you have to watch the video. I guess they got the detective mind so much into detective mode that he has to watch it, and then after that you got 48 hours. It's kind of like The Ring too, when it's a timeline of like when you're going to die to figure out the case. Again, here's this cover. On the inside we have a Blu-ray, we have a booklet, and we have it's just a kind of a still from the film on the other side of that. Here's some. I really like this set design in this film. It is pretty damn impressive. It has a very noirish type of look to it often. All right, so let's go ahead and rate this film. I'm going to rate this packaging first. I'm going to give it a 3.5. I lean in towards a 4. I think they did a good job with it. I do like this cover. Very much appealed to me when I saw it. I like it a lot better than the original cover. I do like that they included the original cover because it kind of makes me think, oh yeah, I remember seeing that movie. I thought it looked like it was going to be really bad. But the movie itself wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be from back in the day. It wasn't as good as it could have been. I think it had too many conflicting ideas. I'm going to give the film. I'm gonna grade it at. I'm gonna grade it 2.5. I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars, leaning towards a 3. I didn't think it was completely awful. I think it has a lot going for it. It has something that could almost give it a kind of a cult following because of the cast and the set design and just the bizarreness of it. But when it comes down to the whole plot, I think they had those two ideas that didn't quite do it, and it was very kind of baffling. But they did have a potential for it to be scary. So I guess this is a 2002 horror film, and I guess they really wanted to push the internet stuff. The bad thing about doing something based on an internet is the technology is always going to look a little dated, but it still works because it's kind of cool that you see that technology. But now, back then when 2002, it was all computers for the most part. But now people will have that phone right in their face, being like Feardotcom, even worse with a phone in your face. Like in Videodrome, even though you got the old technology of like VHS tapes or whatnot, doing the snuff video, but it still was effective today. I really like that film. James Woods is really awesome in it. I don't know. I'm still kind of maybe leaning towards 3 with the stars on this, but I'm not going to dissuade you from watching it. I think it does have a lot of a lot of cool stuff in it, but it also has a lot of baffling things in it. Well, I think my wife said she saw like a few scenes from it. She's like, you almost have to be tripping on acid or something to really get behind this. And it kind of has those visuals sometimes, like you're just completely like tripping on something. Not that I haven't done acid myself, but almost like you could imagine somebody tripping on acid. But I would think that if you're tripping on acid, you don't want to be seeing disturbing, like messed up stuff like this. It probably would make it worse, I would assume. Oh yeah, and real quick here on the transfer, it is a Blu-ray transfer. I don't think they've done anything to it other than just, it doesn't say anything about any kind of transfer or anything, but it surprisingly looks pretty good. I could see like maybe if they upgraded it to 4K, seeing more detail, but in general, it doesn't seem to be struggling. It doesn't look like there's a problem with the master or anything to that nature. And the set design and the lighting, it all looks fairly stylistic, but not overly stylistic as some films from this time frame. It still has a natural, the flesh tones look natural and not like some odd blue or green or orange ass color. I don't know. Anyway, if you've seen this movie, let me know what you think about it. And if you would go ahead and hit like on this video if you haven't done so already. Even if you didn't like it, just hit like anyway. Nobody's going to know. I'm not even going to know you did it. And if you haven't done so already, if you subscribe to my channel, I'm Dave Watkins. Thanks for watching.